Welcome to Wanderlust and Wishes, the podcast where we explore the world one destination at a time.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Krystle.
As travel agents with Fantastical Vacations, we are here to share our passion for travel and help you turn your wanderlust into reality.
From hidden gems to bucket list adventures, join us as we dive into the sights, sounds, and stories of our favorite destinations.
So grab your passport, pack your bags, and let's embark on this journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 46 of Wanderlust and Wishes. Today, we're really excited. We're going to talk about Adventures by Disney, and we have some guests on the show. They're going to talk about their trip.
You guys remember Lindsay from the Club Level episode? And I just spent some time with her in Orlando at Disney World on our little trip, and she's bringing along her husband. So if you guys want to do like a quick little intro.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lindsay. I was excited to do the Club Level episode and to go with Krystle to the Earmarked conference a few weeks ago. And my husband, Jacob, is here too.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jacob. Glad to be along for the ride.
We're excited to talk to y'all today.
First, let's just talk a little bit about Adventures by Disney and what it is and how it's kind of different from what you're typically used to with what you think of with Disney. Krystle and I do talk about the fact that Disney has other options for travel. Obviously, we know about Disney Cruise Line, but Adventures by Disney is really very different than what you're used to. It's not the kind of Mickey and Minnie and, princess type Disney that you're used to. It is all about group travel and United States and worldwide destinations that you're getting the Disney experience, but it's doing it in a kind of planned itinerary at different world destinations.
We actually got to listen to an Adventure by Disney guide at our Earmark conference a couple weeks ago and to see some pictures and hear some of her experiences. And just the year-long interview process was amazing because it is such a cutthroat, and they have to do 6-hour presentations, and it's just very intense. So they have to know their stuff. But these adventures are nothing short of amazing. But they do come with a little bit of a price tag sometimes, which I think is probably the main thing that scares people off. And the word Disney. So I have this in the notes later on, but I'm just going to jump straight to it. I know Jacob is not a Disney guy per se. So explain to us at first your pitched Adventures by Disney. Did you kind of freak out a little bit, or were you like, no?
Yeah, I was a moderate no to start with. I'll start off saying I do like Disney. I think Disney does it really well in most everything that they do. Lindsay wants to go to Disney World 7 times a year. And me, I'm not much of a person that wants to do repeat experiences. So favorite TV show, I watched it once. I don't need to watch it again. I've already seen it, kind of stuff like that. So I do keep going back because there's always something a little bit new at Disney World. And then also just the magic of seeing that with my children and my wife, apparently too. It does have its benefits and stuff. But to me, being the Disney dad, the Disney husband, my friends already give me a hard time about it. Her whole house is covered in Disney. Disney is a dominant force in my life. And so when we wanted to push, well, let's just travel with Disney too, I was like, okay, enough's enough. This is too much Disney. We can travel on our own. We don't need Disney to do this. I don't want to have these character meet and greets. I want to do I want to travel and make all of these experiences and stuff like that. And so I was a pretty moderate no to start. And then the more she started telling me no, it's just the Disney experience. Disney does everything well. And that's kind of what gave me the okay to let her try it for one time. And eventually she always, eventually wears me down to say yes. But
I'm the travel agent.
But eventually, I look at how they do everything in the park. It's clean. The guest experience is always amazing. The food is really done really well. Everything Disney does is good. And so that let me be open to the idea of traveling with them. And I said, eventually I just said, okay, I was I know this is never going to let up, and I'm not completely opposed to it now that I understand it a little bit better. So I will give you one trip. We will try it one time. And then after that trip, I get to make the determination, you have to accept it afterwards. If I'm this is not it, I don't want to try this again. That just has to be the rule. And so that was how I initially started with Adventures by Disney and my initial feelings towards it.
So I guess when you back up, can you tell people what destination and like what time of year and kind of like your run through your itinerary a little bit?
Yeah, so we went to Greece. We have a whole list. We try to go to one country and 2 states every year. So we have a list in order of kind of our excitement levels. And we wanted to do something in Europe, so that it just wasn't such a long plane ride for our first time. I mean, it's long, but we've been to Europe before, so it was okay. Greece, really, honestly, when you look at Adventures by Disney website, Greece, the pictures of Santorini, it's just like what you think about when you think of Europe for us, especially for Greece. So we just looked into it, thought we were really excited to go to Santorini. So when we were there, we went to Athens. We started in Athens, went to Santorini, and then we ended up in Crete. I mean, that was basically the itinerary, and we spent several days in each one.
Is there a reason that you chose Greece to begin with? It was just on your list? It was on your top priority list to go
So
to?
we kind of made a list of all the different places that we were interested in. And that list has definitely changed since that first trip. But initially, we wanted stuff because, I mean, we were comfortable with Europe because of how much carryover with English there is. And then also, I have a lot of food allergies and stuff too. So, one of my travel things that I worry about is if I get here and they can't understand English and we can't talk well, am I going to die from eating this food? So,
That's a valid concern.
yeah. So, we could talk about that whole thing with Adventures
Which
by
was
Disney.
a way I guess convinced him to go, because I was like, well, Disney will make sure, because they're so good in the parks with your allergies, so they'll be great overseas.
They are.
So.
It did help. But so Greece is a little bit outside of that European comfort zone of like your main, like France, Italy, Spain, England, like all of that, like for Western Europe. And Greece is just a little bit farther out of that. So it's like just a tiny step farther out of our comfort zone, but not like going into the middle of like Asia or Thailand or Africa or something kind of more extreme. So it was kind of like the right balance of a little bit outside of our normal travel realm to try to open up our horizons. And that was kind of one of the reasons I was more comfortable with Adventures by Disney because like I planned our trip to Italy, we both did, but I did a lot of the planning for the trip to Italy and doing the itinerary that way manually. And I felt pretty confident in that. But going to Greece, I don't know Greece. And so for them telling us how to do it and everything, it took that burden off. And I think that's one of the cool things about Adventures by Disney is if you're going somewhere completely out of your knowledge base, you don't have to do all of the research. You can just trust them to take you to the right spots and do it well for you.
And when you guys went, it was just the two of you, correct? You didn't take your kids on this one.
No, it's definitely a price that is worth it, but our kids are 5 and 7, and so we think we're going to wait till at least our youngest is 10 before we start taking them with us, just because we can take them other places that they're just as excited about for a lot less, and we want them to really remember these trips because you learn so much, and we want them to take that into we want to actually retain that for their education purposes. So
yeah, my girls are 11 and 13, and now I feel like we could take them to Europe and with us, and that they would actually understand what they're seeing and the magnitude of what they're experiencing. When they're younger, they'll enjoy it, but they don't necessarily understand, like, wow, I'm in this place that has thousands of years of history, that we don't have here in the United States.
Yeah, I would rather them like have heard of the place that we're traveling to or go there. So
at least had geography at some point.
Yes, yes. Right now we can take them to Epcot and they see all the countries, and that's enough.
Perfect.
Did you ever look at like any other tour operators or worry about the fact that it's a group tour rather than going off by yourself? Or like if you did Italy, he touched on that a little bit, like doing the planning for that trip, but did you ever like compare anything else?
I looked at Talksome, the TAUCK, that company that we also have that on our list. But I just wanted the Disney. I just wanted the Disney of it all. So I figured the prices were kind of similar. The difference in those two companies is really just where you go. And I really just thought Disney's was better for the Greece portion on that. And then when we went on our own, we always have fun going by ourselves, but we have developed a love of meeting new people in destinations all over the world. So we thought that would be kind of neat to be, you meet somebody at like a bar one night and you're all hanging out, and then, you don't really see them again if you're in Italy, you know what I mean? So we thought it'd be cooler to just be with a group. Maybe we could kind of hit it off with several different people and then have friends all over. So that's a pull for us. We don't mind going with big groups, I guess.
I mean, you always have that hesitation, that worry that you're going to be stuck with a group and there's just that one couple or that one family that you're like, you got to get me away from them.
Which did happen.
Which we did have that. We had a couple of people in that group that I was like they got to go. Like, it's too much. But it's big enough and you're not stuck with these people. I mean, the bus rides, the travel and stuff, sure, but you're not going to be sitting by them probably on the plane or on the boat or whatever.
Right,
You've got enough
times.
freedom to get away from them a little bit. And then like the tour groups and stuff, you can be with your core group and not be stuck with that one or two person group that drives you nuts.
And the guides are good about, like, if somebody's, because when the whole ride's on, that's the cool thing about Adventure by Disney is even when you're riding in the bus or riding on we had like first class tickets on a boat, or we had the plane rides and things like that. Well, they're telling you stories and they're talking to you. Like, so if you're on a bus for an hour and a half, you're learning about wherever you're passing, or you're learning about where you're about to go see, or they're just telling you in just stories in general. So if somebody is monopolizing questions or things like that, the guides are very good at making sure it doesn't interrupt anybody else's trip. And we didn't have anybody that was disruptive or frustrating. It was more just people who just have different personalities. You don't always mesh with those people. So that's all we really mean.
But
on Jacob's face, he's like, sure.
Well, on the counter, we met someone, Melissa, that we actually clicked really, really well with. And, we're still in contact with her. And whenever we try to do trips in the future, we reach out to her and say, hey, these are the trips that we're trying to go on if you want to try to make it work. I know it's crazy hard to make a schedule like this work with somebody.
Especially with kids, yeah.
Yeah, but the whole thing is like I think the friendship and the relationship we had with her vastly outweighed the annoyance of the one or two people that I didn't really care for.
So how many people were on your adventure, like, total?
I think it was like 36-ish.
Yeah, I was going to say low to mid 30s.
Yeah, because they try to cap it at 40 a lot of the time, is what our guides told us, unless it's like Antarctica was a lot bigger and things like that. But these trips, they make sure that we can all fit comfortably on a bus with plenty of extra seats. You know what I mean? So that was probably between 30 and 40, and that's where we really did low to mid 30s.
That does remind me, I do want to make one point about all the travel between destinations. I think this is one of the things that I love the most and definitely sold me on Adventures by Disney is like you get off the plane at your destination and you put a tag on your bag and then you're done. The rest of the trip, you don't touch your bag. You don't do anything. They put it in the car for you. They put it in the bus for you. They put it on the boat for you. They put it on the plane for you. As somebody that is married to somebody with a lot of extra luggage space and weight, the fact that you just don't have to deal with it at all. Because sometimes when we travel, we're like, we want to stay at this hotel and this hotel. And I'm like, I don't want to freaking pack up and move again. Like, it's a pain because I love you, but it's me doing it all. And
I pack it and he transports it.
Yeah. But so to me, that was, you don't have to worry about it being lost. They just point, they're like, go stand over there and sit in your seat and you're done. And that is a luxury that is tenfold the price for me.
Yeah, to take all the logistics out of it, especially in Europe when it's like, do I need to take my big bag on the subway or roll it across these cobble streets? Like, how are we getting around? So that would...
When we went to Europe, we did 2 weeks and we did England and then we did France or just Paris for 2 days and then Versailles. And then we did Italy for 5 days. So, and we moved around in England. So, I mean, we probably stayed at 4 or 5 hotels. So, I mean, and we did subways with luggage. I mean, we did all of that. So that was our experience as far as going to Europe for a long time. And this was vastly different from that.
So for every husband out there that's like, I'm not sure I want to just think about, you don't have to touch your luggage. You don't have to tip them for picking it up and putting it on anything, taking it off, moving it to your room. You just go to your room and your luggage is sitting outside of it. You put it out in the morning, and then whenever you get where you're supposed to be, there it is again. And
it's magic.
That is
Disney magic.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can pixie dust me for that all you want. That's where it is.
See, he knows about pixie dusting. He likes Disney.
So can you give us kind of like a rundown of where you were every day? Like, how long was your adventure and like kind of your different days?
So we went an extra day. We started out because there's a big time difference. It was, I believe, 7 hours ahead in Athens. So we went a day early just to kind of get used to the jet lag of it all. And then we just explored Athens, the hotel, and just walked around to some different museums and parks and things like that just around our hotel. You're always going to stay in the heart of the city with Adventures by Disney, no matter where you are. where our hotel was just around all these things we could walk to and eat and different things. That was nice. Our first official day, we had a welcome dinner, and that's where we met everyone. And then we met the guides for the first time, and we had to all, stand up and tell something about our families. They just did it family by family. So that was fun, and the food was good. Again, they brought Jacob separate things for allergies and went through the menu with him at every meal, which was nice. The next day, we started at the Acropolis. So our hotel actually overlooked the Acropolis, which was really, really pretty. We could see it. We could see it in the morning when the sun was rising above it, and then we could see it at night, just all lit up. It was really pretty. And then we had our tour guide was actually our guide, because sometimes with Adventures by Disney, you'll have a separate tour guide for different venues. But we had ours. She actually lives in Greece and has been doing this for 20 years or so. So she was our guide in the Acropolis. So that was neat. I don't know. Was that your favorite? I don't know. As far as the Acropolis, it wasn't like I thought it was really neat to see, but it wasn't a highlight as far as much.
To me, it's kind of like the same thing when we did Rome. It's like you read about these things in school, you know about them, and you like have to see them. Like you want to go see them, you want to experience it. And I think it's neat to like, I don't want to say just check it off the list because it's more than that, but you do want to see these things and experience the awe of it and see the history of it. And to see that in person is pretty incredible. But I mean, for me, I liked Athens, the big city, the hustle and all of that kind of stuff. But it's also kind of with the big cities, you kind of have your rundown stuff. And Athens was neat. I don't feel like I need to go back to Athens again. I kind of have the same feeling about Rome. Rome was really neat. I don't feel like I need to go back. I like seeing the outskirt stuff better for me personally.
And you can do places like Athens in 2 or 3 days, and you can do everything. So like we also went to the Parthenon. And that was really neat to see. Again, their ruins. So if you just went to see it, it would not be that impressive. It would just be like, wow, this is really old and neat. And it's cool that the people actually built these things. But having the tour guide tell us stories about things that happened, telling us what, which rocks were old, and which rocks were restored and new, you wouldn't know the difference in those types of things. So I think that was why it was so necessary to have that tour guide. But we did, and we say this wrong, it's like the Panathenaic Stadium. That was really cool because that was where the first Olympic Games were held. And we got to sit in the chairs where the king and queen, the royalty would sit, that were just elevated above everyone. Jacob actually got to race. If you could volunteer to race, that's not my wheelhouse. But he actually won. He beat everybody. That was fun. And then they let him stand on the pedestals on, first, second, and third place with an olive crown and do their little ceremony. So all those things, they prepared for, and a lot of the kids that were on the tour loved that too. So that was really neat because, everybody likes the Olympics, or everybody's at least interested in the Olympics. So that was cool.
There wasn't much competition.
Okay.
I didn't let up. I made sure they knew where I was here.
One thing I loved about Greece is what I tell everybody is that they told us a lot of stories of the history of Greece, and they told us a lot of Greek mythology, and they would kind of cross over between what was real and what was myth and things like that. And, you do hear a lot about Greek mythology, but it was neat to see where the stories come from. And it is, but they're all obviously based on real history. So that was really, really cool. That was a lot of the first day, honestly. And then, every day you have lunch. There's like a lunch or a breakfast or a dinner or all three. So we went to different places, but I don't know that any of them were different than the other as far as the restaurants go.
To me, food's important to me. And even though I'm allergic to half of it or don't like the rest of it, but it is important to have good food to me. The food that I do like, I want it to be really good. And so they'll take us to different restaurants that they recommend and stuff like that. Like if it's the whole group going, it's going to be good. And it's such a tremendous amount of food. There's no way that you could possibly be hungry. It was like an 8-course meal every time like even for breakfast. I'm like, why is there so much food? But they keep bringing it out. But all that to be said, sometimes there'll be like local people that do like a specific Greek dance, and they'll come in and perform for you while you're eating lunch. Or it might just be like, this is family restaurant for 100 years. And they tell the story of it's always something. Like you're never just going to eat and hanging out. Like there's always an additional little extra something with it. And I think that's really cool. And then when they turn us loose for the night or for dinner, they're like, okay, you're on your own for dinner. Here's a list of 20 different places and a little bit of description, and we recommend these places.
Yeah, and the food in Greece is it's amazing. All the meat is just so well prepared. It's so tender. It's so good. All the different sauces, like the sauces were a huge thing because there was just different stuff for breads or sauces or meats or vegetables or whatever it was. Everything was great. And we did eat. You can kind of think of it as an all you care to enjoy meal at Disney World or Disneyland. It's just whatever you want as much as you want. If you liked the potatoes on your plate, well, let's get you some more just because, that was really neat. And that's not typical for restaurants. Disney gets that special stuff for us. And then we really didn't feel miserable because the food, it's Mediterranean food, it's really, it doesn't bloat you and make you feel terrible. I think that was a big thing. And all of it was very fresh. All the bread was made that day. That is really important. We could go on about food, so we'll move to the next day. The next day we went to the Temple of Poseidon. That was really cool. They told us the stories of Athena and Poseidon having all of the battles and different things like that. Those stories are just incredible. And really, I'm sure you can look them up on the internet, but the way that they tell the stories, Disney is all about storytelling. And so you can tell that they have perfected those stories, and we were completely enamored the entire time. There's no falling asleep. There's no being bored. There's no drifting off. You're completely enamored with those stories. We even got to see where Lord Byron had carved his name into the Temple of Poseidon. Little things like that you hear about these people, but he's long gone, but his legacy lives on. So that was really cool for me.
That's really neat. I would have totally fangirled.
I'll send you a picture.
But even the bus ride, it was several hours, but the little things, they'll hand out water halfway through, or they have snacks and they're like, hey, here's some snacks we got for y'all. And it's just the little stuff like that on top of the very detailed guiding. It's like your own personal audio tour, but it's live and they know it, and you can interrupt them and ask questions.
That was a lot of the stuff in Athens. We looked at a ton of different ruins, and we went to so many good restaurants, saw a lot of dances and stuff like that. We were there for 4 days, and then we transitioned over to Santorini, I was the most excited about Santorini because of the blue roofs. The way we went there by plane, so it was just a quick 40-minute flight. So it was nothing. Like Jacob said, they got all of our luggage for us, put on the flight, gave us our tickets, got us in our seats, and then we arrived in Santorini. Our resort in Santorini was straight out of. It reminded me of a beachy movie. There's an infinity pool and there's a glass wall around the whole resort, so you're seeing all the mountains and all of the landscaping, but you're also in a resort in a pool with drinks, and you're in these little luxury villas, and that's where we were. And our bed was kind of low, but then there was these just different walls around us, and it was just really, all the architecture and structure was beautiful in the resort, and all the walls had those those little cutout windows that you see. I feel like we would not be able to afford that hotel. If we had gone separate, we would not have stayed in that hotel. It was amazing. And that's another thing with Adventures by Disney. You're always going to stay in a 5-star resort, which hikes up the price, but hikes up the experience. So that's important for us.
You're staying at the top end stuff. They have top end service.
And they know everybody. The guides know all the hotel management. So whatever you need, whatever you're arriving, they're there to greet you. They're giving you drinks when you come in. All that. It's that's just a huge plus for us, for sure.
Yeah. And if something's wrong with your room, you just text the tour guide. You're like, hey, I need this, or this is not right. And immediately they fix it because they know the manager, they know all of it. They've been going to that same hotel or resort for 5 or 6 years. So they have those relationships that just make stuff happen. You don't have to grease the wheels. They're already greased.
We went to a wine museum in Santorini first, and that was really cool. We got to taste all different kinds of wines with food to match up with it, and they would explain it all to us. We're not super wine connoisseurs. Jacob is a bourbon guy because he's from Kentucky. He knows all about bourbon and whiskey, but wine was a little different for us. That was cool. It was just neat to be able to have that experience. They would pair them up with things like that.
Yeah, we got to stomp the grapes. That was really cool.
Yeah, we got to do grape stomping. So I just felt like I was in that I Love Lucy episode, where but we didn't fall over anything. But that was really weird feeling though. It wasn't my favorite thing, but I'm glad we got to do it. All the kids on the trip were.
You also drank all of the wine before you started stomping, so everybody's a lot more willing to do.
Yeah,
it. We're all out there, it's
have you loosened up.
We've had 4 glasses of wine, pretty much, and just being silly out there with the whole group and letting loose. And these are complete strangers, and you might not act that silly in front of them, but drink some wine first, and maybe you will.
Oh yeah, and also something I was going to say is there's always going to be a professional photographer. One of your guides is going to have that skill level, so he would take family photos or funny photos. He'd take photos, candid and posed, the whole trip, and it's kind of like having a memory maker, And it's I'd be like, oh, hey, come here, Jacob, let's take a picture. And he would just take our picture. And then we got all of the pictures at the end. Like every single picture you took, you got that included, which is not something you can always do on a foreign, like if you go to a foreign country because it's just the two of you. Sometimes you're like, hey, will you take my picture? Or hey, can we do this? Or hey, here's a selfie. But these were professional photos. So that was big. So it's really cute to have our little pictures of us stomping the grapes and things like that in the winery. So I really like that.
I love that because no one can ever use my camera. And then I hand him my phone and half my head is cut off.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, well, do we need to ask someone else? And my husband's like, I don't want to go through the trouble. Let's just go. And I was like, but I want a good picture here.
Yes. The Blue Roofs are in a city called Ia. It's OIA. And we just thought Santorini was this small place, but there's actually little cities that you could go to. And I was very surprised that there's only like 4.
It's a scam.
It's not a scam.
Santorini is a scam.
Not a scam, but there's only like 4 of these blue roofs. You think it's like the whole like city island thing is going to be blue roofs everywhere, but it's really just these 4 you can see from these specific locations for these specific amazing pictures. And we stood in line and we got the perfect Santorini picture. We got it with us in it and without us in it. But I mean, they said some days the line's like 2 hours long to get that photo. So we were kind of lucky. We only wait about 20, 25 minutes. But it is really cute little town. It is really just touristy. It is just hotels and shops and food, and which is great. But I don't think it would have been. We didn't stay in that area of Santorini, which I kind of thought we would. But there are these little like villas you can stay in. Everything has a pool. But it really is just a lot of luxury boutiques and ice cream and food and things like that. So it's really just like a day trip to go see it, which was really neat to see it. Only downside was that it was super hot that day. So we were we were really sweaty. So just trying to explore was a little bit hard. But I will say I'm so glad I've been to Ia to see the blue roofs and take the photos. But again, it was not one of those things where I wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it was still really, really cute.
It was really pretty. And having that experience and getting to actually see that in person, like this famous thing that people all over the world can recognize just from the picture. And it almost looks like AI, like we photoshopped ourselves into this picture. This is my other warning for husbands. These boutiques are insane. Don't take your wife here. Don't. It's like you go in, you're like, can I get this dress? This is the perfect dress. I'm like, yeah, sure. And it's like $480. Get out of here.
It was a lot.
It is a very beautiful place, but that one section is pretty touristy, kind of like a tourist trap. But our guides told us that. They're like, y'all, I don't want y'all to be disappointed. This is how it's going to be. They set the expectations before we got there, and it was pretty accurate.
The coolest part to me wasn't just seeing everything and shopping, which is what I thought. It was learning about all the stories about all the pirates that inhabited Santorini and how there was a problem in the Mediterranean because of all the gifts and the treasures and things like that. I mean, that history and them showing us different locations where things were destroyed or rebuilt, that was the cool part. And that's not something you would get just going there and swimming and hanging out. That was what we got from being with our tour guides. And the blue roofs they're painted to match the water. And I thought that was really cool because the water is a different color the closer you get to specific beaches. So that was really neat about why the blue roofs are so famous. Because I just thought because they were really pretty in the pictures,
I did have a weird obsession with the water because it was so different than anything, like any beach that I've ever been to in America, no matter which ocean I'm going to. It's just like I've been to Hawaii and seen some of like nothing can compare. It is wildly different and beautiful there. And I was obsessed with it. And we looked at like all my pictures on my camera roll. And it's like, here's 123 different pictures of water. Which one do you want, Jacob? I'm like, I know, but they're cool. Watch what this one does. Like, when I do a live photo, and it is really beautiful. You can see like 40 feet straight down the bottom of the ocean everywhere you go. It's wild. And then also the really cool thing, and I might ruin this for a story later, but the salt content in the sea there is incredibly high. So besides getting in your mouth, and that's unfortunate, but like when you jump in the water, you literally just sit there. You don't even have to float. You don't doggy paddle anything. You just sit there in the water and you float. It was a really weird experience. It was cool, but swimming you can swim forever because it's so easy. You don't have to stay above water. It just does it for you.
And that was the next day. We swim in the caldera, and in Ia, there's all the red rocks because it's like the volcanic material that's come from different eruptions. And so, but when you're in the water, like they ask you to wear a black or a navy or dark colored bathing suit because it will stain. I didn't go under the water, but Jacob did. And they went under, and all the guys got all the mud and like put on their faces and took pictures, of all like the volcanic mud. And they had to get it off quickly because it would stain. You know what I mean? It was neat.
It stayed on for a while.
Yeah, it stayed on a little bit.
I didn't get it off
too long. Yeah. But that was my favorite. One of my favorite things to do is to swim in the caldera because with Disney, they can drive the boats a lot further in because they have special permission because it's kind of shallow and they don't want any people being crazy and getting their boat stuck. So we got to go real close to all the rocks and swim and just play and hang out, things like that. So that was really cool. Really funny story. Our guide is married to, he's actually from California. He's married to a Greek woman, and he took her to California to see all the California beaches. And he thought she was going to be so excited. And she was just like, okay. And he's like, you don't think this is beautiful? She's like, no, your beaches are so angry. They're so angry. And, it's not even that beautiful, but it's because in Greece, everything is so calm in the caldera, so there's not the wind and waves aren't getting in because there is surrounded by all the mountains and volcanoes and things like that. So it was just incredible. I mean, that was one of my favorite things, just swimming in that. Just because you're in a different sea, you're in a different element makeup of the water, the gorgeous colors, just all of it that was a great day. We just got on a boat. We cruised around looking at all the different islands and hearing the stories of how the volcanoes erupted, how the islands broke apart. That's how all of these different cities were created. And then we just swam. I mean, it was just that. I mean, that's what we think of when we think of luxury vacation, luxury sailing. That was really great. We had a private captain on the boat. There was food and things like that. That was a great experience for all of us.
Yeah. And to add on to it, like when we went swimming there, they took us to one spot where the sulfur from the volcanic activity still leaks into that area. So the deeper you get into this little bay, like the hotter it gets.
Mhm.
You can literally feel the heat from, the volcanic activity, like warming the water right there. That was really cool. I think one of my favorite things that day was we went to the very middle, like in the caldera, there's the actual volcano that is like an island there. And so we got to go there several hours before it's open to the public. And I think that's some of the Disney experience that we got is private. We're there. You can see everybody else just like waiting to go there. And we just drive right up and we're like, hey, Disney.
VIP.
Yeah. And so, we hiked to the top. And one thing in this podcast I'm nervous about is ruining the experience for somebody else, because I don't know how much of our experience is special because they did it just that time, or they do it every time and you don't know how special it is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it might just be like, I don't want somebody to expect this really cool experience and they just did it for us because of that one specific, or maybe they do it every time and we're not special. I don't know. But
They have different itineraries for different times of year, just so that can cause a little bit of change in the itinerary.
they took us all the way up to the top. We hiked to the top of this volcano. And at the very top, we took pictures and all of this kind of stuff. And then our tour guide's like, all right, we have a special celebration and all this kind of stuff. And this was it wasn't a hard hike. I mean, how old was that guy? Like 80?
Uh-huh.
And he made it 3/4 of the way up the hike before he decided. I mean, he was killing it though. So I don't want to.
He was like in the army and stuff. So
Yeah.
he was pretty legit.
He was legit. But he eventually turned back. But we went all the way up there, maybe an hour and a half long hike. And we get to the top. And our tour guide pulls out a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses for us to celebrate our anniversary.
Yeah.
So stopped everything.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment. And then I was just thinking, like, this dude just hiked an hour and a half with a backpack full of ice, champagne, and all just to give us this experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's truly the special touch that makes it different than anything else that you would experience. And, maybe it was just trying to get me to be with Adventures by Disney in the future, but it kind of.
I feel like we're going to go around our anniversary every year and tell and make sure they know it's our anniversary.
Yeah, but I was like, hey, like they let other people have like drinks and stuff. And I was like, I mean, we should probably kill this so you don't have to carry it back down.
the champagne bottle, yeah. Then he would have to carry the bottle back down. So that was the best day, I think, of the whole trip, is swimming in the caldera and then hiking the volcano. We actually even got to feel where it was hot still, where it was still smoking from where, I mean, it's still a live volcano, an active volcano. And so we got to put our hand kind of in there. They wouldn't let us get hurt or anything. But I mean, everybody loves volcanoes. Everybody's interested in volcanoes. So it was cool to see that. Our last thing we did in Santorini was go to the Minoan ruins. It was a live archaeological site where we got to see what they had recovered and what they discovered. And then they had a video you could watch, and our tour guide knew all about it. So that was really, really cool just to see. I mean, we really like history. So that was huge for us.
He was in archaeology before this,
yes,
I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure
She was super into it, like giving you the details of how this is this layer and how old it was and why this might be like that. That was the unique experience. And I think you talked earlier about how hard it was for them to be a tour guide. And you can tell, like, these are not like sometimes you get a crappy tour guide. You just do. You get on a bus and Joe Blow gives, a 15-minute tour and it's just not very good. But these people are the cream of the crop. They're the best of the best.
And like you can tell they're very passionate about what it is that they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to be there and they love to be there. And it shows.
Yes. And they're so interested. They said they learn something every time they go on a tour, even though they've been doing it for so long. And that's huge for them because that's them getting paid to travel, which is, that's a dream for a lot of people. So we ended up going from Santorini to Crete. So after that, we did it by boat. And so they had we got to sit in like business class on the boat, and they did all of our luggage and all that kind of stuff too. And so there was food that we could purchase or eat. They provided lunch for us. So since we were traveling at lunchtime, they were able to just bring some like kind of sack lunches to us. So that was really neat for us to be able to eat, and then we show up in Crete. The hotel in Crete, was it the resort in Crete?
Yeah.
It was probably the prettiest one we went to.
It was the nicest.
It was the nicest for sure. And Crete, we thought Santorini was going to be our favorite, but Crete outshined all of it. We said we loved Athens and Santorini, but we didn't necessarily need to go back because we feel like we did everything. Crete we could go back to for sure. Because it was breathtaking. Every bit of it was just absolutely breathtaking. The only issue we had the whole trip was that our room in Crete was hot. And because we were on the top floor and the window, they don't really use air conditioning except for like during the night, it's just during the day. So our room just had a lot of sunlight directly coming into it, but they brought us fans and they did things to help. So that wasn't terrible. It's just if we had one complaint, that was the only thing. It wasn't your air conditioning you get in America. And we kind of knew that going in, but we didn't have any trouble in any other hotel. It was just this one.
Pro tip in Greece is they don't insulate the top, like the roof for some reason. I don't know why they don't insulate the roof. So don't stay on the top floor in the summer.
Was there a lot of Greek mythology in that area? That's what I think of when I think of Crete.
Yeah, they did like Gnosis and all of the...
We visited that palace. That was really cool. And they told us all the stories. And another a side note, every day they gave us a Disney pin, like a Disney trader pin. They gave us a pin every day. And they're specific to whichever Adventures by Disney trip you're on. So you can only get it on that trip, which is just really neat, especially if you're a trader. And they would tell us different stories every day about the pin. So like the one we got that day, I think it was Phil from Hercules, and it was like the Palace of Gnosis and things like that. Yeah. So they had a lot of Hercules stuff, of course. Just that was only in the stories or pins. It wasn't, and there wasn't like a meet and greet or anything like that.
But I think that's the only piece of Disney, like actual Disney, that would set it apart, be like, oh, this is Disney, is just those little pins once a day.
Yeah, that's true.
There's no overwhelming Disney in your face. Just once a day, they give you like one of those trading pins that you can only get if you're like one of those people that's super into pins. You can only get them on these trips. So
may not be the reason to go, but it's a really good reason to.
Yeah, but that's literally, I think, the only thing that I saw Disney on the whole trip was those pins.
So when we were in Crete, we did a lot of we got on a boat and we went around in these private catamaran tours that we got to just look at all the islands, there's a famous resort that only basically, it's like $15,000 a night. And it's like where a lot of those celebrities go to, and you could see it on just like the side of the cliff of the mountain. We got to see that. They kind of talked about how Greece stands between Europe, Asia, and Africa. So that's really neat to be in that location between all these different continents. That was just huge. We got to learn about all the culture there. We got to learn about all the different produce that they had and how they traded and how they grew everything. A lot of the olive trees, it was very nature based. And usually that's not my big thing. I really like architecture, but it was just so breathtaking. Every picture you took was like it was on a magazine about Greece. It was just, everything is beautiful. It's not hard to get a good view or a good picture. So that was huge for us. We went to Spinalonga, the
leprosy island.
Yeah, the leper island.
Spinalonga was one of the coolest experiences for me. It was a leper colony in Crete, and so they didn't know how to deal with leprosy back then, and so it's just this little isolated island. And if anywhere in Greece or maybe even surrounding areas, if you got leprosy, they literally shipped you to this island, and you had a colony there because it was so contagious, and eventually you die from it, and there's nothing you can do until they found the cure eventually. But our tour guides were telling us about it, and there's a book that is about Spinalonga and about the island and about the history of all of that. And they told us that early on in the trip, and I just downloaded the book real quick and read it because you have to travel a decent bit, like on plane, boat, like bus. And so I just picked that up and I read it in my spare time, and I ended up reading the whole thing so that I could appreciate the history of it that much more. And so to be able to do all of that and see the leper colony and know the stories and the actual history behind that, think I probably teared up a couple of times.
Oh,
It was kind of
It's,
intense.
I mean, it's hard, that book.
And then to see, it was like, it talked about World War II and how they, tried to fight off the Germans and all of this kind of stuff on that island. And it's just the rich history in that little area that you would have no idea about. And you don't even know that leprosy was a thing in the 40s. Like, we had leprosy and it was an issue. I didn't know. Like, you read about it in the Old Testament, sure, but I didn't know that we still didn't have a cure for it, and we were still fighting it into, like, I guess my grandparents' lifetime before it finally got eradicated completely and cured. But that was fascinating to me. I love that.
And we took a boat there and back. So, we got, if you didn't want to go into you didn't have to go all the way in because it was kind of a hike, or you could, or we could just, you're just kind of going along all these cliffs and stuff. So that was a huge thing for Disney, is we got to go all by ourselves. Nobody else was there with us to a lot of these places, especially Spinalonga. And then we got all those stories, and then they could point out, like, right here is where this happened in the book, things like that you're not going to get on your typical, like, $30 tour. Okay, so we went to the Palace of Knossos and saw that. And one of the cool things we did was go to a very, very small city that had a mayor. There were only 11 people in the whole town, and they all just kind of traded and did things. Like, there was one specific guy that did cheese, and one person that did olive oil, and one person that grew all the tomatoes. And everything in their homes were made by hand. All of their buildings all the furniture was made, all the rugs were created. I mean, it was just really, really neat. It felt like you were back in time. And that is a Disney exclusive. They made that very clear. They have made friends with this mayor, and they are able to go visit. And we got to see them make cheese. It was really, really, well, it was kind of gross for real, but it was neat to see the process of it all. We got to see them. They had a live beehive that was making honey, and you got to taste it right out of there.
It was so good.
Everything was just fresh. And
what was that? What was that drink that he?
Raki?
Was it Raki?
I think it was called Raki.
Yeah, that dude. I bet he took 15 shots of this stuff, and he was like trying to get all, like, you do this weird thing where you like wrap your arms around it, kind of like when you get married and you do the champagne, like the husband wife thing. Well, he was doing that with all of us and just trying to get all of us. And
one shot was enough for me, but this guy it's like part of his diet. It was crazy.
Dude, he was getting it. He was doing really well for himself health wise, and I think I did too. And that was about all I could do. I was starting to feel it pretty heavy, but I bet he had 15, 20 shots of this stuff, and he was ready to go.
Oh yeah, it was really, and he just told us stories and talked to us about his town and the history of Greece, and he was very Greece proud, and that was neat to see him and his family. And then one of the last things we did was we went in. We were able to make these Kamboli beads that were like worry beads, and the girl taught us how to do it and what was the prayer and things like that. So that's kind of a wrap up of that was the last day. So that was just neat to see their culture and their traditions and be a part of them. It's not like you're just hearing or learning about it. You're actually making the same things. You're actually helping make the cheese. You're helping make the raki. You're helping make the beads. You're helping do these things. You're learning how to make tzatziki sauce, just all these different things that you're engulfed in. You're not just hearing or tasting, you're creating. And that was big for us because that's not something, unless you just go live there for a while, that's not something you necessarily get to do. Our last night was emotional more than we thought.
It was rough.
Because it was 10 days, So they do this huge farewell dinner. They had all these dancers come and perform for us. We got to get up and learn how to do all these great dances. We had just so much food. It was insane. It was right by the pool at the resort. And then he just kind of disappeared. Our tour guide disappeared for about an hour and then brought us in this room, and he had made a video of the entire trip. I mean, pictures and video footage and just all of us, all of our relationships forming and just every little good moment with each of the groups. He had made a video for all of us, and we got to keep it. So it was like 15 minutes of just footage from the whole trip. Plus he had downloaded every picture he had taken, and you could go through and just select the ones you wanted, keep them. That was really big deal. And then we all had different flights the next day. So the buses would just go take first load and then take the next load, so all of our luggage was there. So until they gave us our luggage at the baggage claim, right there where you check in your luggage at the airport, that was when we got it. And we had to take ownership of it again. But I mean, that was really emotional just because we had made a lot of good friends. We got really close to both of our tour guides. We still talk to them. We have another trip planned in August. So we asked our tour guide's name was Chris Brown. If y'all go to Greece, Peru, or Africa, you need to ask for Chris Brown. But we asked him if he was going to be in Peru, things like that. So, I mean, these are good people that have become friends. And we can tell by their social media that they have created friendships with all kinds of people that's what's big for them. So it's kind of hard to leave because you don't know if you're ever going to see anybody again. We were from anywhere from California to Montana to Maine to Alabama, so that was really, really cool. Just having that one last night together and just getting to hang out, eat, drink, and just hang out and be together for that last night.
I'd say me and Chris are pretty much best friends.
Yeah, Jacob and Chris.
The name of that book, though, was The Island by Victoria Hislop for the Spinalonga stuff. If everybody wants to read it, you should read it if you're going on this trip. You should read that book.
We'll put a link to it in the show notes. You didn't ever specifically say, except for a couple times, but to see the Disney difference in each day and the different experiences, where they would go above and beyond. And I'm sure that things change a little bit here and there, but just like at the parks, it's the cast members and your guides that make the experience. So
Absolutely.
I love to hear those stories.
I know it's hard because it's a podcast, but just the expressions and the smiles on their faces as they're telling the stories and remembering it, it was very impactful, and you can tell.
Yeah, and I don't want to ruin it, and I'm not going to, but how we got the pins and stuff is one of my favorite parts of the whole trip. And I don't want to ruin it because it's a special thing that they did and their little tour guide thing. But the way they did it was magical, and you knew it was coming. You knew every day you were going to get this pin and there was going to be something with it. And every single time they tricked us and with it, and you think that you're going this one way, and then all of a sudden, surprise, it's the Disney experience. And gosh, that was one of the best experiences. I'm not going to go into details, but I'll leave it at that. It was one of the coolest things that they did.
Yeah,
they got to keep you on your toes.
Oh yeah, and they have to incorporate some Disney a little bit, but they just did it with the pins and with little stories, and so that was neat because, especially for Jacob, because he doesn't he didn't need to see Hercules around every corner and watch movies on the bus and all that kind of stuff. It was just Disney Adventures by Disney is Disney creating travel itineraries all around the world and putting Disney luxury and magic on top of it. It's not traveling with Mickey, and that solidified it for Jacob that we probably will go with Adventure by Disney going forward because we had such a good experience. So why change it?
I'll differ a little bit on that. And I'm open to trying another one just to compare because I don't have anything to compare it to, but I don't have any issue at all with going. Really, if you have two of them and they're the same price, I'll just pick Adventures by Disney because I know it works well for us. But, if I could find a talk one doing a similar trip that's maybe 20% less expensive, then I'd be like, hey, let's try it and see if it is different.
Or if it had a different, some of the talk ones they are similar in what they do to Disney, but they just have a little bit different itinerary. So that's something to look at for sure. Because Disney they're so luxury and they're so specific that they may only have one or two itineraries per destination. So that would be the only thing that would really keep us from it.
One more thing I do want to add on to that, one of the families on our troop did, and I think is an amazing idea, is they did they have little mini adventures, escapes is what they call it, and on Adventures by Disney, and you can do a 2 or 3 day escape. So they flew all the way over. I don't remember what they did, Europe, Italy or something.
They did a lot. Then they did Barcelona. That was there.
Yeah, and they tacked on an escape either before or after their Adventures by, because you want to utilize your whole time. If you're going to go that far
to fly
over to Europe, you could add on maybe you want to see Barcelona, or maybe you want to do this one little city and just add that on there. And that was a really cool idea that I want to do.
Well, we're going to Peru in August. We could add Costa Rica if you want.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
So do you have any advice for how you prepped aside from reading the book, or things that they told you to pack that you were grateful you had or you wish you would have brought? I know it's probably specific to your adventure, but
it is. And they give you a list of these are things you need to bring and these are things you could or should bring. Our itinerary, they give you a handbook, and it was it had packing lists, it had weather stuff, it had everything you were doing that day, addresses for everything, your contact information, your emergency contacts. It had they told us to bring the black bathing suits for Caldera so we wouldn't stain our clothes. They told us to bring hats for the Acropolis because it's on the top of the mountain, so you don't want to get burned. And they also had sunscreen for us and waters for us and all these different things. So I think that was my main, I was glad that I brought the black bathing suit because I wouldn't have wanted to mess it up, They told us to bring, if this didn't apply to Greece, but you're going on specific places and you're going in churches, they'll tell you to bring something to cover your knees and shoulders and things like that. It should really just follow what they say. Do what they say for you to. I will say, though, they told us to they gave us backpacks and water bottles, but they said bring your water bottles, but they had bottles of water for us every 2 hours we had water. So I would say you don't actually have to have those bottles. Just we didn't want to carry stuff around, especially hiking. So that was really neat. And they really do carry all the supplies. They had bug spray. You don't have to bring a backpack full of stuff every at every little excursion. They kind of have that for
I
you.
mean, it might just be our specific tour guide.
It could just be Greece, but
Well, and I don't know how much of it is like that's how all of them are because we've only done one. It might just be we had the most exceptional tour guides ever.
I mean,
Probably.
But I would say if you go to Greece, especially in the summer, just bring hats because you are in a lot of open space, and you do want to make sure you're not getting toasted because you are. I mean, you're on that trip for 10 days. You don't want to be miserable.
There's like a backpack thing and some water bottles they told us to bring, and it was like
it's more just like neat to have for later for me for the backpacks. But some people used them, so it's really just depending on. We like to carry a lot less, especially when our kids aren't with us.
So speaking of, do you feel like this would have been something that you would recommend for a family as well as being, a couple on the trip?
I think it was all families on the trip except for us and Melissa.
Yeah, that pretty much was all families because 6 was the recommended age. So I would say absolutely because the kids would go off with the tour guides and like go watch Hercules and have pizza night, or they would do they got to do the races, just kids. I mean, there was a ton of things for kids to do, but it didn't affect adults, if that makes sense. Like we were not inconvenienced by anybody's kids at any time.
Yeah,
I would have wanted to go watch Hercules too.
I know, right? Well, but we got to go to the luxury. We had to pick between 3 restaurants. And like one was Italian, one was like Japanese, and one was something else. But we got to pick a restaurant and then go like if our kids. If we had been with our kids on the trip, that would have been one of our only times alone. So I think you probably would have been okay.
Yeah, I will say like the age range on the kids in our group, we had some that were like 10 and 12, and then you had several that were like 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that awkward, like we're doing this kiddie activity and like the 17, 18-year-olds are like, man, I'm too cool for that. Like,
but they got into it eventually,
Yeah.
and they all became friends. Like the little groups of kids, they became friends. And before the trip, there's always a Facebook group, kind of like a cruise, where you can see who's on your trip, which we know because we were first time, but we will know for next time. But a lot of those kids had already made friends on that group, so that's really neat. I mean, just for that experience, they will remember things more because they had their friends.
Yeah, you always have that. I think it's easier for adults to mingle and not get through that social situation than kids, because kids are just awkward anyway. But once they got through it, it was better. But it was still kind of that like, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to be with my family. But it's a little awkward, but they eventually did. They have something there for them, and you can utilize it.
And I will say that all the kids, they had a lot of fun, but it's a little bit more expensive to do an adult exclusive than it is to do a family trip. It will never hinder us from doing the family part of it. Like we would rather save a little bit of money and do the family one, and because the kids didn't bother us, they weren't frustrated. Even if it was like a kid that had a little bit of annoying tendencies, they weren't ruining our experience, and the guides weren't. It wasn't an issue. So I would say even if you're going as a couple, don't let kids being around deter you unless you just really don't like children, because it was worth saving $1,000 a person. I mean, $500 to $1,000 a person to do the family instead of the adult exclusive. So
I mean, really, unless you just are so anti-kids, like you can't deal with it, then
it wasn't bad.
I can't see why you wouldn't just do the family one and save some money.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that there was a solo traveler with you?
Yep.
Yes, she was in the military. She's in the Navy, and she's a big Disney girl. So she just jumps on a cruise ship or jumps on an Adventure by Disney whenever she's not on a Navy ship. So that was really cool learning about her. And now she's in California, so I'm sure we'll jump on a cruise or Adventure by Disney with her again, just depending on her travel schedule. And because she's at sea a lot in the Navy, so that was really cool. She solo travels all the time, and we learned a lot about that from her.
Would you do anything different next time?
The only thing that I would consider is I wouldn't mind trying to figure out how to do one of those escapes if it worked.
Right. To add on or add. And, I would say something we debated about a lot is going a day early. I would say we would do that again. I would have regretted if we hadn't gone a day early because of that time change. Yeah. So that's something I would definitely.
Oh, here's one thing. So this is one thing that I wish that I will do differently on the next one is, and I gave this feedback to our tour guides, is sometimes at night they just have like a general, like, when we get back at 3:00, you're free. And they'll say stuff like, hey, here's these different restaurants you can go to and whatnot, but nothing is like planned. And so to me, I would want to plan something and tell the whole group, like, hey, we're all going to, there was no nightlife for me. And
right,
that's something, there was in Greece, but there was nothing planned.
Mm-hmm. And
so that's something that I would take the initiative to do myself, so that we could have a group optional, like, hey, we're all going to go do this if you want to come.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you can socialize a little bit more, have a little bit of a nightlife, because we started doing that some in the hotels. Like after we were started to get to know people, we would be like, hey, we're going to go drink at this bar if you want to hang out. And so we started forming some of those friendships, but that took 4 or 5 days to start, I think.
And we should have asked the tour guide a little before, because he did have recommendations later in the trip. But I think now that we know, we will look at the handbook beforehand, because they can send it to you a couple weeks before. So we will, and just kind of fill in some of those gaps. But we are those people that we don't need to relax at all if we're on a trip. Like, we don't need the downtime. So we like to fill every little moment. So I think that's something we would do, is just try to fill those moments.
Yeah, I think that's just something I would do, is make a structured, like, this is the plan. Because if you just leave it free for all, everybody goes and does their own thing. And, some people do want that, but there's also some people that are looking for something like we were. There's a couple other families that we found out were looking for stuff like that. But because it wasn't like organized and planned, we were all just kind of like, whatever.
Were the days, did you feel like they were like high paced? Were there pockets of time where you could like relax too, besides those couple hours?
They were really well balanced. I mean, we would have a day and they would say, hey, we're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, so prepare yourselves, and we're going to go till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But then it would be like, we'd be resting until dinner, or there would be a dinner on your own. And then there would be like, hey, you have 4 hours, go to the spa, or go eat somewhere, or go swimming. Like, we went swimming in our Santorini hotel for a long time, just, getting all the different fruity drinks and just enjoying all of our friends and things like that. I will say one thing I would not do again, I just thought of something, is we did the spa. There's a spa option at the hotel in Crete, and you could pick from this huge menu and stuff. And I don't think that I would have spent, it was a lot more expensive, and it was just taking time away from being in Crete, so I think that because to me, a spa is, it's kind of the same experience anywhere. I feel the same way about Disney cruise ships. I don't always do a spa experience there, because you miss out on time, and you're only in Greece for 10 days. So we would have probably skipped those few hours of spa time and done something else. I really wanted to spend more time in the pools, and they did make time for that. But a lot of the times our evenings were free rather than our days. Our days were pretty full. But I don't feel like we got up that early most of the time. If we had a late night, we weren't up till like 9 or 10. We weren't having to be somewhere. They really did a good job with that to make sure that everybody was comfortable, because they said it takes about 4 or 5 days to get used to it. We were waking up about 2 or 3 in the morning for the first 3 or 4 days, just trying to get used to it. But we were so excited that we were okay to get through the days. But it was just, we were kind of tired.
Yeah, I would say for me personally, it was a little bit just slightly low on the amount of activities. But like me, I want to pack the day full. So like, that's what I'm saying is, like, I want to do like an organized event. But I can understand for people on vacation, especially with kids, if they have kids, that, putting one more activity in there might be too much. Like, I completely get that and respect that. But for me, I would have liked to do one or two. And you had the option to do it yourself. It's just.
Yeah, there's a good balance for sure, though.
It sounds a lot more relaxing than a Disney World trip where you're like, trying to rope drop and their hotel park clothes and
run around. Yeah, it is for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is part of his issue. He's like, why are we running to this ride? We've ridden this ride 12 times. I'm like, because we have to do it.
Was there anything that surprised you during the trip?
Well, it's this is personal, but I am not an outdoorsy person, really. Like, I like to be outside if it's a controlled environment and there's no bugs and there's no dirt. So, I'm that girl,
I feel
I'm not a camper. Yeah.
Right there.
I'm not a hiker, none of that. But my favorite was like swimming in the dirty sea and hiking the volcano and sweating and just seeing it all and touching the rocks that were like just covered in all the red dust. Like, that was because it's just so interesting. Like, it's being a Christian, I am just so enamored with God's creation. And I just thought, it's just like, wow, like how is this here? How has this been preserved so long? It's just stuff like that is so insane to me. And we love to be like in a different ocean, a different sea, a different, just experience different things. And so to me, it was like seeing anything that was not man-made was just breathtaking. And that's not normal for me. Normally I'm like, give me a skyscraper over a beach all day, but this was just a different experience.
I think for me, a lot of it is being in Europe is that they have thousands of years of history that we just don't get to experience every day. And I know a lot of the people that live there, I feel like they probably somewhat take it for granted because that's just something all the time. But when you go and you realize like this rock is, someone that was here, 2,000 years ago touched this rock, the same rock that I'm touching, it just, for me, that's always amazing.
I'm interested to see after Peru if you still have the same the same feeling about the outdoors.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, South America is going to be a different experience.
We want to do a different continent, so that's our next adventure.
And honestly, Chris, our tour guide, said Peru was one of his favorite things, the favorite tours that he's ever done.
Because it's so beautiful.
Peru was not on our list at all.
Mm-mm.
And that's what I said at the very beginning of when we were looking at different places we wanted to go. And then it completely changed because we talked to Chris. We talked about all the different tours he's done. And so now the tours that we're interested in doing are a little bit different than they were before because of his experience and his recommendations and stuff.
Right. And someone who's gone everywhere in the world. Like we wanted to, we want to take the right advice instead of just what we can Google. So
And I know, so Peru is on your list. And I think Africa, if I remember, is on your list.
yeah, so this is our 15-year anniversary this year. So we were thinking to do South Africa, but when looking at the itineraries and the dates and the pricing, Peru made more sense for us for this year, for August this year, and then we booked it. And so I guess we're going to have to book an escape too, because he seems real into escapes. But yeah, I think we're going to try to do South Africa next year. We just keep an eye. I keep an eye every month on the different itineraries that they release for each year and just kind of see what works with our schedule. Since we do have young kids, summer is a good time for us to go because they'll be with like babysitters and my mom or a nanny rather than having to take them out of school or like having to have somebody take them to school, things like that if they're not with us on a trip. So
I know it's probably a struggle for Lindsay because she's such a planner, but to me, I think it's really interesting every year when we're trying to figure out where we're going to go this year. We're like, all right, here's a list of 6 or 7. And then when they release the list, we see which one has the best price value, which one has the time that works. And we don't know where we're going that year. It's like, it could be any of these places. And then I know that drives you nuts probably.
yeah.
But I love it.
I've always done that. It's nice to have Adventures by Disney though, because now we can just look at those itineraries and see instead of just the massive amounts of trips that are available, because we do cruises like that too. Now we're kind of just what cruise makes sense for us rather than being like, we want to go on the Disney Treasure on this day, That helps us a lot to be a little flexible.
What is one piece of advice for someone thinking about booking?
Book it. Just do it. I'm just kidding. I would say just the price tag is what deters people. We know that. And I think it's look up some hotels that you might want to stay in or, really just talk to your travel agent. But look up some places you want to go to, see how much that costs. Look at the flights, see how much that costs. Look at the food, look at the activities, look at the tickets, and then see if it's probably not going to be comparable if you stay in the actual luxury. And I think that's a tip for me is do one and see if the value's there. And if it's not, sure, go piece it together yourself or get your travel agent to do it. But if you can just go on the one that's already planned to the T to perfection, then just to give it a try. That's what I'm thinking as far as the booking. And if you want to just stick with Europe, that seems a little easier because of the English language. Or if you want to go somewhere that's not a different, like even when we go to Peru, it's not going to be we live in Alabama, so the time zone is the same. So that's important to us. There's no jet lag. Just kind of work with your travel agent to see which one makes sense for your family and which one you can afford, and then just go for it.
Well, I can tell you right now, I want you guys to come back on and talk about Peru because I'm
absolutely
so interested. I would love to go.
Yeah, we know nothing, so we're excited too.
Yeah, Peru was not really hammered very hard in my public education.
No, me either.
Well, I actually have an undergrad degree in Spanish, and so I did a lot of like South American history. So I would love it.
You would love it. We'll send you all a picture.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of people who don't realize how much is actually included. Because like you were saying, there's at least 1, maybe 2 or 3 meals every day.
Days was all your food all day. We didn't buy anything.
Your tickets to like visit all the sites and the
private tour guides, private tours.
Your transportation between.
Yeah, that includes boats and planes and train, all of it.
So that's a huge value, right? Like already.
Yeah,
lumped in.
You're probably close to the amount of money. You're just going to spend a little bit. It's like instead of staying at a value resort, you're staying at a deluxe resort instead. So that's your difference in cost, really, is what it feels like. And you're saving so much time. For us, a couple $100, couple $1,000, like to us, saving time with having like little kids and all the activities we're involved in, all the hobbies, and we each have a business and we have a full-time job. So it's just like having that time back that we're not having to put together an itinerary, and we feel confident that it's going to be the right. Like I feel like we did Greece really well. We did everything that we needed to do. That it matters to us more than being like, oh, we need to go back and see this thing. So let's figure that out.
Yeah, if I had to give overall advice, if you're considering Adventures by Disney, I think 1, it's pick somewhere you have no confidence in trying to figure out how to do yourself, and just trust that they'll do it for you. And then 2, kind of like what we're talking about, is don't necessarily pick one place and lock in on it because you might not be happy with the time or the price. Pick 3 or 4 different places, general time frame, and see which one works better. And then I think you'll be a lot more willing to go on it, and the price will work. And I know we said earlier, like I am a Disney person compared to the average person. I think maybe not compared to y'all, but to me, I think Disney is a very, very good trip. I think sometimes is it the most valuable trip based on how expensive it is. And so I think sometimes if you're comparing like Disney or Universal or something like that, and you want to do that versus like Six Flags, and I hope I don't get in trouble for being like, I'm not saying anything bad about Six Flags, but like the difference between like the Disney experience is like Adventures by Disney, and then, going to try to figure it out yourself and doing all of that kind of stuff would be kind of like going to Six Flags. Like you can, but like, for instance, when I go to Disney World, I want to get on the dining plan because I want to eat great while I'm there.
And not worry
Or
about it.
I could save a couple $100, and when I go to dinner, I'm like, do I get the chicken fingers this time, or I just get like a water to drink? No, like I want to go get an appetizer, get the steak, get a cocktail,
Dessert.
get a dessert. So I think it's worth the extra money if you can afford it. I think that's kind of where it is if you want to do a big anniversary trip, something like that, pick several places and find the one that works for you, especially if you don't think you're comfortable doing it on your own, because that's the difference.
I love that. Well, I think you answered all of our questions.
We have a little surprise for Jacob.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Lindsay's already done this. So, Jacob, you get to do our lightning lane round.
Oh my.
Yeah,
What is this?
Fast. You
Okay.
can't be long-winded.
I've never won one.
All right. These can be Disney related. They don't have to be Disney related. Whatever you like. What is your most memorable place you've ever traveled to?
I think really honestly the trip that we did in Italy, because that was like fresh after getting married, and like that was our first big trip for us.
And it's so romantic there. I love that.
Florence specifically. I love Florence.
It was. We did a carriage ride. It was amazing.
Aww.
Love it.
Do you have a favorite Disney destination or theme park?
I've really grown fond of Epcot, doing, eating and drinking around the world, and like I've done all the rides and stuff, so I'm happy to get different foods and do that.
Do you have a favorite ride?
Guardians is tough. Like
it's
you
so
can't.
good.
Guardians is when I first rode Guardians, it's the most amazing roller coaster I've ever done. That first experience, insane.
I love that. Do you have a favorite meal, snack, drink, or restaurant that is always a must-do for you?
Okay, this is the weird one, and I'm a really big fan of Gaston. So LeFou's Brew, he's got some drink there.
It's at Gaston Taverns. It's called LeFou's Brew.
Yeah, LeFou's Brew is the drink at Gaston's Tavern. I love it. I don't know why. That's I have to have it every time I go.
Do you have a favorite resort? This can be one you've stayed at, one you'd like to visit. This can be Disney, non-Disney.
I don't know. Resort doesn't really matter that much to me, honestly.
You love Riviera.
I liked it, but like it's like I spend so little time there. I'm like, whatever. It doesn't like to me.
No, Aulani.
To me, no. To me, it's more important of access to the parks. Get me a Skyliner. I'm good.
Sure.
But to go back to the other one, Vampire Tacos. They were there once in Epcot. It was one of the World Showcase things.
They're like Vampiro or something. It was in the Mexico Pavilion, but he calls them Vampire Tacos, and we've never found them again.
We did one time.
We found them 2 years in a row, and then they've not been there again. It was during the Flower and Garden.
So sad.
Another bucket list trip or destination that you have your eye on?
Just all of them. I mean, I know South Africa is one. Like, I'm super pumped about Peru. I want to do Egypt at some point. I really want to branch out and get into Asia. I'm just nervous because that's a little bit different, but I do want to do that. I want to do it all. Huh?
Well, you could do the new Disney Adventure cruise ship over there and then go do an escape.
Yes, this is a great idea. It only goes out of Singapore.
You're talking to 3 travel agents. Like, what do you expect?
And that ship is totally different than the typical Disney.
It has a whole marble.
Because it was started by another company and Disney purchased it. So it's designed completely different than what you're used to when you go on a Disney cruise.
Put it.
Well, thank you. That was all of my questions. Lindsay, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yes, my website is castlesandcoastlinestravel.com. My Facebook is Fantastical Vacations by Lindsay with an A. And then my Instagram is Castles and Coastlines Travel.
Thank you guys so much. This was so awesome. Adventures by Disney is definitely one of my bucket list trips that I would love to go on. This just makes me want to go even more. And I cannot wait to hear about your trip to Peru.
Well, if you want to go, we're going August 5th. So
That might be a solo trip for me. I don't know if I can convince my husband to go to Peru.
we can always do a Disney cruise.
Thank you so much to all of our listeners. We appreciate you listening into our topic today, and we hope you have a great week. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wanderlust and Wishes.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.
And remember, the world is full of wonders waiting to be explored. Until next time, happy travels.
Bye for now.